Yes, we're active, we're live. This meeting of the Rogers ISD Board is called to order at 6 p.m. There's a quorum present, with the president being absent, Trey Victor. And now we're going to proceed to item number 3, pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we're going to item number 4, public comments. Alrighty, we have no one. Alrighty, we're going to item 5A. We're going to share information for the potential first grade teachers. Ms. Morgan Ross.
Yes, so just to kind of reiterate some information, this year we had a very large influx of first graders. We knew the kindergarten classes were a little big last year, but I think anybody that has moved into Rogers has had a first grader. So we ended up with 23 in every class. And at one point we had 24 and then we had one move out. So we, like I told y'all, earlier in the year, is something that our teachers value and that we're going to honor is low class sizes. And so we posted with the idea that we are only going to hire the right person. We want the right fit. We're open to the right fit, but we're only going to hire the right person. And one of the beautiful things about Rogers is that people know people. And there is a teacher. She's currently in Huntsville ISD. Her name is Morgan Ross. She is marrying a gentleman from Rogers, a good Rogers family. And so her district, Huntsville ISD, has graciously allowed to let her out of her contract. I talked to superintendent and the director of human resources. They both commended her on how she followed the process. She was honest and open. Had they not let her out, she would have continued and she would have fulfilled the contract, but it would have been about a 2-hour drive one way every day. She gave them plenty of notice. She's going to finish through the 4th. So we interviewed her. Committee loved her. I think one of the things that came out of the committee was, had we interviewed her in the summer, we would have offered, checked references and offered on the spot. She's wonderful. In her first year of teaching, I talked to her principal myself. Principal had wonderful things to say. Said she's got a really busy class this year, and she does a great job with classroom management. So we are tickled that Huntsville ISD was so just so understanding of her and her needs and her family's needs. And so they're letting her out of her contract, and we are recommending her for hire. And you'll see that later on the action items and consent agenda. Anybody have questions?
How many kids do we have in first grade?
So 20, 40, 60, 69. We are up to 70 now.
Okay, good. Wow.
We actually got a new first grader last week.
Kids
Yeah.
under 20 pretty easily.
Oh, yeah. We're up to 70. We got a new one last week. And then today we were in here in a meeting, and I don't know what grade they were, but there were 2 that came in and they looked young. They looked like kindergarten. I was like, are y'all in first grade? So yeah, we had a couple registering with Tammy today. I'm not sure what grade they're in, but Rogers is a good place to be. Yeah, it's a good place to be. I don't blame them for wanting to come here, but I'll also commend Tanya, and I told the principals don't worry about coming tonight because it's short and sweet. But I'll commend Tanya because she did a great job at putting, still following the process, right? We expect them to look through applicants. We actually had 2 applicants. We interviewed both of them. Put together a great interview committee. It was the first grade team, all 3 of the first grade team. Plus they brought in Miss Kircha because Miss Kircha was actually a first grade teacher when we had to do this before, when the numbers got big. So she had great insight. And then Miss Esselton, Miss Dockery, and myself. So we're the ones that interviewed. So Dockery did a great job putting it together. So that's what we're recommending. Okay. And we'll get to consent agenda later. I'll put it down. And so I guess, B.
Yeah, no more discussion. All
Yep,
right.
so
Five
item
B.
yeah.
We will now hear and consider a presentation from the, I don't want to slaughter the name of the company.
Gallagher.
Gallagher, okay, construction company to serve as the district facility program manager for potential bond projects.
And so before they start, I'm gonna reference, Rhett Gallagher, he's also coming tonight. He called me about an hour ago and he goes, I don't know what happened, but it has gone to, I was gonna be there 30 minutes early to now I'm gonna be 15 minutes late. I don't know what kind of traffic I'm running into. I said, trust me, Rogers understands traffic. You just drive safe. So, and I had this set up for y'all. I just went to sleep. Come over here.
Well, first, thanks everybody for allowing us to present to you guys. We're excited to be here, and we didn't really coordinate how we're going to flip through slides, so we'll just let me see what the technology is doing.
You got it set up just exactly like you.
And we'll kind of use this space as just to present and walk through a couple of slides. The goal for today is pretty simple, for you guys to get to know us and for us to answer any questions. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to do a stand and deliver type of presentation. They tend to get pretty boring and everybody's been working for the day and it's not just the best way to get to know each other. We like to get to know each other people over coffee, over a meal. So we won't be able to do that here, but we want to get through the stand and deliver information pretty quick, and then we'll get to the Q&A stuff. Again, we're excited to be here. I'll tell a little bit of story about me. I've been doing this for over 24 years. A couple of months ago, I gave career day presentation for the first time in my 8-year-old daughter's class. And she had never seen my career day presentation, and I was going through it, and I told the class when I started doing this, and she raised her hand and she said, "Dad, you've been doing this longer than Google has been alive." And she's right, but so it's been a long time.
She basically called you old.
Yeah, she basically called me old, and apparently the only person that could do that was my daughter with a smile on her face, and she wasn't going to get in trouble for it. But I've been in the K-12 bond management for about 24 years. I've managed bond programs all over the state of Texas. Right now, I run the Houston office for Gallagher. We have 4 offices in the state of Texas, and my role is essentially to run the program project management service line out of Houston. And we have Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Jeff Hurd, and I've been with Gallagher for just short of 3 years. I'm originally from Tennessee, and worked for the same company. I started out with my dad, about this big, and the company sold, and I kind of went with the sale, and then sold again, and I went with the sale again. So really worked with the same company. I'm too old. I've been doing this for 45 years, and been very blessed because out of all the things we can have an opportunity in our careers to build, my joy is K-12 schools, and not in a boastful way whatsoever, but to build over 165 new schools and ran over 220 programs over my career, and never had I have had a disappointing project. Challenges, yes, but more importantly, we engage with the client, and we feel very responsible fiduciary side as far as representing our client. I've sat on that side of the table as a general contractor for part of my career, but coming on this side, I realize what I'm managing, understand it clearly, but our passion is representing the client and making them whole. And whatever goes into bond is, we're here to make you completely whole, and to hopefully give you everything of your expectations as it starts from the infant stage all the way to completion.
We'll go through the agenda, pretty simple. A little bit about Gallagher, a little bit about program management and that service line. Some case studies, We'll focus particularly on something that's close to home, which is Royal ISD. And we'll go into some bond planning because it's our understanding you're still early in the bond development. So we'll go through a little bit of the bond planning that we provide. Gallagher started in '68 as a family company, as a contracting company. Right now it has 3 generations of Gallaghers in it. Rhett is one of the, I'll call it grandchild of the original Gallagher. Bond is Rhett's dad. He's also the chair for the company. But the company has grown from really a mom and pop when it started, 4 or 5 folks, to now we're over 180 people. We're all over the state of Texas, and we provide not only construction services, but back in early 80s, we transitioned from construction services to construction management agent, and then later, about 10 years later, into program project management. All of those things provide different services to a client. And we kind of learned all of the tools that are going to make a project successful over the years. And now we provide bond management, facility planning, construction management, program management. Again, all those have specific meanings in them. And as you can see on the screen, we're all over Texas. The Star, close to Houston, that's the office I work out of, but our main office is up in Dallas. We have an office in Waco, one in Fort Worth, and we're really all over the state. I would say 80% of our clients look exactly like this school district. They're smaller school districts. And we purposely help smaller school districts because most of the smaller school districts don't have an infrastructure to run a bond program. They have folks that can educate students really well, but because bond programs aren't as cyclical as they are on big school districts, we come in and bring folks that do this day to day, year after year, and that's how we augment the school district. And by the way, we were just talking about Rhett. Rhett, you want to introduce yourself?
I told them that you stopped for coffee, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm like, is that okay?
I wish that was right. Hey guys, I'm Rhett Gallagher with Gallagher Construction. Thank y'all for having us out. Again, I apologize that I'm late. I hit a whole load of traffic there. It was not showing whenever I took off, so I'm sorry about that.
We were just talking about how we've grown and how we're all over Texas now. We're going to move into the slides. You want to take these on, or
Sure, we sure can. So have you already talked a little bit about our background?
a little bit of background?
Perfect. Okay. So I saw on the map before, we were all over Texas, right? Our 4 offices in Richardson, Waco, Houston, and Fort Worth. Truly staffed all over the state. We've worked at Waco ISD for a little while, done quite a few schools. That one right there is J.H. Hines Elementary School. Down in Dime Box a couple of years ago, we did some renovations throughout the entire district, a couple of additions as well, but mostly some renovations. Older gym that we kind of brought back to life with this project.
Did y'all do that when Jeff Conagan was there? Or was that a little before him?
Nick West
Nick,
was at Region 12.
Yeah.
So that's a renovation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was an existing gym. It was an older gym, and I should have put before and after photos because it's hard to put into words how much that gym was brought back to life.
You know, the funny thing about renovations is the floor is usually shinier in renovations for some reason. It's probably
Yes.
because you get that extra polish, but it looks super nice.
And then, of course, we've been in Caddo Mills for quite some time. Actually, somebody from here, Luke Allison, is superintendent there. So we've done quite a few projects, still are. Right now, we're getting ready to ramp up for a baseball and softball complex for them, and as well as their football stadium. That was part of their past bond. But that right there is our high school, as well as their ag facility that we did for them just a few years ago. So currently, we're managing just under $4 billion worth of K-12 construction as owner's representative. We're deployed and positioned all around the state, as we showed in that map before. I think that speaks for that. And our goal is always to hire as local as possible and give opportunity to local trades. With the owner's representative, everything that we do is completely transparent. That's what we pride ourselves on and have since we started back in 1968. My granddad, he sees things in complete black and white, right? And we've kept that. It's either right or wrong, and we've truly stayed to what's right since then. The local opportunity, we find it's very beneficial whenever we get local involvement, whether it be in our trades or contractors, depending on which delivery we choose. But in this instance, it'd be contractors. That helps out with getting that kind of buzz around the projects going on, getting that local involvement. And B, it also helps us to be able to find hopefully great contractors that we can take on to the next place, right? So really it's a positive thing that we like to see, and we've prided ourselves on for a long time.
So you are talking about like as the program manager working with the architect, saying like, hey, like when we have to subcontract these things out, let's look local.
Yes, ma'am. So once those designs are made by the architect, it'll be bid out or selected, depending on, there's different methods on how we can do it, to select that contractor. It's completely up to the board on who is selected to be the contractor on that job. And so we, of course, give our letters of recommendation. We go through all the bids and make sure that we feel like they're able to perform. But as long as they're able to perform, get bonded and insured, then it is completely up to the district on who they select.
And that's part of it.
Yes, ma'am.
And so another thing that the board would consider and approve is the delivery method. We did talk about not only the contractors, but also what type of mechanism you want to use to hire those contractors is also going to be would also be presented to the board, and the board would select that. When we give recommendations on the way I'd like to explain delivery methods to folks is that there's not one delivery method that's better than the other. They're all different tools. So what we would do is we would explain to the board what the different tools do for us, and then you guys essentially help us select the best tool for the job. Is kind of the way to look at it. And we can talk a little bit about program management and the differences between program management, construction management, contractors. So as program managers, what we do is we are an extension of the owner. My only job for the past 24 years since I've been a program manager for owners is to protect you guys. That's it. That's literally my only job. When you hire contractors, architects, there's a lot of different moving pieces, and everybody is looking out for their own best interests. My job is to look out for your best interests. That's it. That's how simple it is. And we do that by bringing in folks that have managed bond programs in the past, have experience in K-12. We do that by bringing tools on board, such as schedulers, program controls, and project control systems. So we bring those tools on board. We deploy them here, and those tools essentially help us. They're an extension of you guys, so that helps us tell not only you, but also the community, the health of the program on a recurring basis.
So when you say manage the bond program, you're not talking about running the bond, but if a bond was to pass, like the what's next part.
Right. So we help. What we call pre-bond is we'll help owners do all the homework on how to pass a bond.
Yeah.
Once the bond is passed, we help execute the work for that bond program.
Yeah.
So we really do it all. We talked about how we started as CMA or contractors at CMA, the construction managers. So we really can help you for essentially the life cycle of the entire planning to the time that we hand over the keys, and we deal with warranties, everything in between. And then an advantages of somebody like us is we bring in all the subject matter experts that really you don't have. We talked about it earlier, how your focus is on educating kids. Our focus is on managing bond programs and helping develop bond programs. So we have all those additional resources that we bring in. We do it for fixed fees. We manage architects, engineers. We manage demographers and pre-bond planning. We help. We hold your hand through the entire thing. By the time, some of the feedback I've received by board members and school districts that we help with is when we started, we didn't know what we didn't know. And now I feel like I could, after I leave my position here, I could go and teach this somewhere else. So that's kind of what we do. Bring you up to speed on what the codes are, tell you what the next steps are. By the time you're done with it, you have a really good grasp of what it takes to run a bond program.
And one thing I want to kind of emphasize on that is that fixed fee portion of it as an owner's representative. Sometimes what you'll hear is program managers getting paid, and whether it be percentage or hourly, however it may be, right? But if you're working on the best interest on behalf of the district, that fixed fee keeps all of those decisions out of play, right? Once it's agreed upon, it does not change. It does not go up or down with the project. It is set. So whenever we're going through there, if there's maybe changes that, and as simple as changing out sinks, right? Say there's a cheaper option for a sink and a more expensive option for a sink. If I'm getting paid on a percentage, I'm going to recommend that a more expensive option, right? If I'm on a completely fixed fee, I'm going to give you the information so we can make the right decision. You may still want that more expensive option. That's what we're doing. Or you may want the cheaper option, and it keeps that completely out of play for us.
Yeah, so AIA contracts are designed in a way where you pay consultants based on the value that you're spending. And what we find is that a lot of times that creates this incentive for people to spend more money.
Is that how architects usually get paid, on a percentage, right?
So I'm an engineer, and I'll tell you that is how architects and engineers are paid, percentage. The bigger the spend, the bigger their fee. We do not work that way. We find the team that you need is how much it's going to take to run the bond program. It doesn't matter if you spend more or less. This is what it is.
Well, in my experience with bonds is they want to spend all the money, right? Like if you have 84,000 or 84 million, they want to spend like 84,500,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of our job is to rein everybody in unless you come back and say, well, you know what? Let's figure out a way to make this happen. How do we have additional funds or funding sources? So but our goal is always, we have this initial game plan. This is the money that you want to spend. This is the timeline. And our tools are set up to make sure we hit those things.
So how does that work if program management architect kind of butt heads on something? Who trumps that? Who has the?
So we are an
authority on
extension of the owner. We represent you. We always trump the other consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way to look at that though is that we do not hire all those folks. Everybody has a direct contract with the school district, but as industry standard, everybody's agreement has language in there that says the name of the school district, and it says the project manager is the owner representative. So that's where we come in and say, as the owner's representative, this is what needs to happen.
But everything goes through me and through me, the board.
Right.
Correct. Yes. Correct.
You'll say y'all work as a CMA, construction management agent.
Yes,
We
sir.
do, yes.
And so if you're that, do you need a CMIR?
No, sir. So CMA is an actual delivery method.
Mm.
A program manager manages those delivery methods. A CMA is a choice of delivery method. And so that's one where it doesn't necessarily work over the architect. It works alongside the architect. And so that would be close. It's almost a hybrid between a general contractor and a PM, right? You still get the owner's representative, the fiduciary responsibility, but it's more almost boots on the ground. Like whenever you come to the job, we handle every single individual trade bid. There's on-site job superintendent, the project managers. If you pulled up to a CMA job and a CMR job, I'm not sure that you'd be able to
Yeah, you couldn't
recognize
tell
the
the difference
difference just by
by
pulling
seeing
up,
everything.
right? It's the setup of the contracts and that owner's representative aspect.
And I was just going to follow through one more thing that I've been on both of them. And I think one time with the CMA that we didn't get checks from the CMA, we got checks from the school district. Is that the only difference in the pay method?
From the trades,
Yeah, if I was a subcontractor, I got a check from the ISD and not from the CMAR because it's the CMA.
yes, sir. There's still an approval process that goes
Yes.
through that CMA, but they are written from the district. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the way to look at it is both sides are still owners' representatives, but CMA really does focus on the construction aspect. So we have folks, when you do a CMA project, we have folks that are superintendents that are literally looking at where are you screwing that screw, right?
Yes.
But we're not overseeing the architects, engineers, and some of the other consultants. We're really focused on construction. On the program manager perspective, we're overseeing the entire thing. So we're not just looking at construction. we're looking at construction from a higher level, but then we're also managing the architects, engineers. We're handling other consultants as well.
So would the CMA be more work on the school district for when payments go out? Because the school district has to have somebody that writes those checks instead of the CMAR doing it?
There's multiple ways to
Tracy's
set.
like, that's me.
There's-
So I
so-
mean, I'm just thinking about more work for the people in this office here with the CMA, because if y'all are not writing the checks through y'all, the money doesn't go as a lump sum to y'all, and then all the subs get it separately, so that's a lot of paperwork and money to deal with.
Yes, sir. So that's one thing that's kind of a common misconception is there's multiple ways to do it. Some districts like that. They find maybe
They
the
wanna write
accounting's
their own
easier.
checks?
Yes, sir. It could just be a transparency and a trust thing. Other districts, they'll set up an escrow account that's managed by the CMA, and at that point, it's essentially us just managing that money that's been dedicated to
But
that project.
As far as transparency, does it matter? Like both ways, we would have access to be able to kind of trace the money.
100%.
Because one of the things that, if our community says, yes, we're gonna bond, we'll do monthly, like bond updates, right? Where every month we'll say, this is what we've spent, this is where your money's going. We want 100% transparency from second one, so that our community knows this is where every dime of your money is going to.
Absolutely. So in a CMA setup, that all those CSPs, that's how it's bid out as competitive seal proposals. So at 100% designs, every single trade is bid out as a CSP through the district. So all of that is completely public information. So every single dollar that flows in and out of that project is completely transparent and available for y'all to see.
Now, the other thing, on the program management side, same thing, we go through the same process. But instead of only looking at the trades on the CMAR, on the construction, on the PM, on the construction side, you will have one contract, one payment to the contractor. The contractor is making all those subsequent payments. But we're also tracking architect payments, engineer payments. So the system, when we send up the project control system is essentially the system that tracks all the finances. When we're tracking it on the PM side, we're tracking everything. So if you have a bond, let's say for $40 million, we're tracking all the 40. Versus if we're looking at it from a construction manager agent perspective, we can give you a summary for everything, but really the payments that we're focused on are the contractor payments. But yes, you always have information for everything.
So what I was understanding, what Ms. Brashear said, I think when we talked that in Royal, y'all were the project manager,
Yes, sir.
but y'all weren't a CMA or a CMR. Is that right? You said they weren't the contractor, they weren't the
They weren't-
contractor on that one?
Yes, you want to,
We oversee that CMAR or
Well, what doing the
CSP
work,
or
right?
Yeah,
however.
but y'all weren't actually either one of those, so
Correct.
Yes, sir.
yes, so that's like kind of a little different situation there.
Yes, sir. It's all dependent on, in a PM situation, that owner's representative is above those 5 delivery
Mhm.
methods. There's 5 approved in Texas. It's CMA, CMR, CSP, design, build, and job order contracting. And so the PM oversees that. If you have a CMA, then your owner's representative is in that delivery method. So there's, whichever one you choose, you get that owner's representative, but they don't necessarily need the other to
Mhm.
cooperate.
Yes.
Do you use any software to manage this whole project, or everything is gonna be done through paper in communication between you and the board?
So-
So how you, like, software?
So what we normally, we recommend, and because this is, I would say 98% of our projects are run in a software called Procore.
Okay.
Procore are the industry leader in project control systems for construction. The nice thing about Procore is that and I don't want to sell you on Procore, but it's certainly a system that we use. The nice thing about it is that it gives you live data. So for example, let's say once we get the program started, let's say the bond passes and we're saying, okay, it's time to move, we would have some work sessions and set up who's going to have access to certain information. And let's say you want the superintendent to have the information of everything, all the finances.
Right.
Well, she could go in on a daily basis and say, okay, how much money have we spent right now? Or how much money do we still need? Or how many potential change orders are out there? So you want to manage your risk, right? Do I want to spend more money right now? Well, but there's a lot of exposure left. So there's a lot of those, what we call key performance indicators that we can track through Procore. And I don't want to get into all the details. I mean, that's, I don't, we can
and
go
Jesus
into.
might be the only one, well, Jesus would be the only one of us two that understood the details. of the software.
We've heard about your 36-minute board meetings.
Yeah, so we're trying, we,
36.
that might be, by the way, that would
Everybody
be a
else
good
around here
conversation
does
over
all
dinner.
work,
We could go into that for a while.
Yeah, especially the lab data, that's the most important, being able to
Yeah.
feed and being able to be on the dot, like you said, if anything
Yeah.
changes. you'll
Well,
be
it
able to
helps
make
me
decisions.
communicate with
Exactly.
y'all and the
With
community.
Well, we were just talking about even the newsletter that you were showing us earlier, because immediately we're thinking, okay, what would be a good way to communicate information out? So what happened probably 10, 12 years ago when we got these smartphone
Yes,
things
the devices.
is that people expect information now.
Yes.
Not at the end of the month, not at the end, or I'll get it to you in a couple of days. They want the information now. What that type of software helps us do is provide information now to the people that should have that information.
Very good.
So Royal ISD, Jeff?
So here's an example of kind of collaborative, all the things that we've been talking about and some things that especially that Red's brought to our attention. When it comes to the time of, now we go to construction. We've got the bond, we've had propositions with the project center, et cetera. Now it's time to start design development and go to construction. So we wanted to use this as a case study, not only because that Mr. Bashir was there when this happened on this, but this was the main driving project at Royal on their bond. Keep in mind that a lot of times a bond, as it starts its development stage, by the time that it goes to vote, we've got established estimates, and they become budgets, and they become what we go to vote for. So this being one of the 18 projects there at Royal, this project had a total all-in cost budget that was preset for the bond at $42 million. It was also predetermined that it would be a 600-seat, it's K-5, for 600 students. It's being built in a brand new development area. Rooftops are going up as fast as you can believe. And so the superintendent, the school district learned real quick between just before the bond went to a vote and by the time we got the architects on board, they needed 800 seats, or they would have wound up with portables on the brand new site. So we're challenged. 42 million. Construction cost, you back out all your soft cost, construction cost was supposed to run around 37.8 for 600 seats. So what did that challenge do to us? It pushed us to 20% more building, went from an 85,000 square foot building to needing 113,000 square feet. So you can see what was happening to cost before we ever even got started.
That's also what happened to the superintendent's blood pressure. And we just kept going up.
So with all that being said, we're really proud of this project and what it's done for Gallagher, not only for what we was able to do for the district, but what we've been able to do for our company across the broader perspective of other districts. We spent about 7 months in design development with the architects. Here's a prime example. So whenever we got our first 25% DD drawings, we went through schematics, we got to design development. Now we got a 25%. We chose just before that we got out of the SD that we needed to come up with a delivery method for the whole bond program. This is when we went to the board, had our workshops, and with the soups and some board members, a selection committee, we chose to go to CMAR. So what we was able to do was bring the contractor on board immediately. Therefore, as we are designing, they're estimating, and they're giving input of real live cost data, what the market is bearing at that time, etc. So they're able to see that data. But the time that they got involved, we were already in design. So we're having to go up 200 seats, 20 more percent of building. As you mentioned earlier, by not managing the architects, the mechanical engineers had this thing designed for a spaceship. And They wanted it. Reason being, their billables, they are independent to the architect. So the architect hires them, and they're billing the architect on a fee as well. So what happened, we got our first budget and it was giving us a projection at 43 million. So we had no soft costs. We had nothing to work with, and we're over budget, about $5 million. So we called a reset, stopped it, reeled everybody back in, got to see them like they are more involved with cost. Just to give you closure on it, we closed that project, went to GMP. It's now under construction, about 22% complete, but we brought it in at 36.8. We brought it under the original estimated budget for 600 seats. We're giving them 800 seats.
And that was for cutting out some of the more flashy details.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too that we kind of found during all that is they wanted to build award-winning buildings, and there's nothing against award-winning buildings, right?
But sometimes you have to be practical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when it was budgeted pre-bond
Yes.
for the building that didn't have those, right? And then once that scope expanded,
Okay.
it kind of became time to decide, what do we need here?
Yeah.
And so then it was us to deliver for the owner on making sure that they got what they needed.
And I'll
Yeah,
also
and
say one of the things that I think Royal and Gallagher got right is when we were cutting things, we were having conversations with teachers and saying, hey, what do you think's important? What would you cut? What would you keep? Like one of the biggest things is when going into it, originally there was conversations about like the art and music. You remember that? Like the double-decker art and music. And it kind of came out that wasn't a priority to the art teacher, the music teacher, I think they were able to save some space.
A lot of high volume
Yeah,
space that
yeah.
wasn't necessary.
And
was able to
wouldn't have known
capture
that had we not brought in teachers for this conversation.
So we talked about who protects whose interests. A lot of times, architects
Are you- did you
they're
say
trained to create these beautiful, magazine-ready buildings. And I think there's certainly a space for that, but you also have to understand those limitations. And getting a building into a magazine is not as important as getting students into a building.
Amen.
Well, and I would say, just add a comment right there on this one particularly, that is a rendering that was, it's not very dressy. But this is going to be a beautiful building. The exterior, the interior, it's state of the art. Products are, I don't know that anything that we lost of anything when it comes to a high level of quality. It was just a mere fact of pushing hard on the architecture.
There was nothing taken out that was of value to the teachers. The things the teachers valued were those areas inside yeah.
It's funny, the way I explain it to folks is that you're gonna make dinner and you can buy all the stuff you're gonna cook at Whole Foods and it's gonna cost you a certain amount of money. You can get the same stuff at Kroger or H-E-B and it's gonna taste the same, it's gonna be half the price. Sure, going and shopping at Whole Foods is probably nice, but I don't go to Whole Foods for a reason. I mean, I go to H-E-B and Kroger. I mean, that's kind of the way to look at it.
Another new, I know this concept has never been pushed out and it's a new envelope, but is it possible to design, engineer the building with a possibility of expansion? So you'll be in the future, in 10 years from now, we have the future and this might be able to expand this side of the wing. Can we create like a bridge or something to prepare for the possible expansion?
That's actually a really good question, and we were actually talking about your 10-year master plan. I mean, we're thinking about 10 years ahead.
Yes.
These buildings are built to live for about 50 years. So whenever we design a building, you have to think about 50 years ahead from now, not just opening day. So yes, a lot of times you select areas where you might have expansion, or
Correct.
sometimes you're thinking about, you bring in the 10-year master plan and you see how is this going to grow? Maybe we buy some extra space, or where do you position the building so you can grow this way? So there's a lot of those conversations taking place.
Yes.
If you'll notice where that building's got a little kick out there on the top right-hand corner, just as you said, that's a great question on it. This building is designed for an additional 200 more seats
That's what I was.
So it's the space, it's a 15-acre site, it's very tight, but it's very well designed to where that, and we feel for sure that this district is going to be there probably in 5 years. But it's already set in the green space back there behind in that, and I said that is a rendering, but it's set for another wing for 200 more seats.
Yeah, it's like the engineer designing, such as the water, the.
So all the mechanical systems and
Mechanicals.
everything,
Make sure
the
the usage
hydraulic
correctly.
piping and everything is sized to go to that.
Maybe that's-
So the common spaces, like the gym and the cafeteria,
Yes,
are capable of handling that
that's
many?
right. That means when you do the next one, it's just really plug and play.
Gotcha.
Yes, that's what we want to look forward to.
In Van Alstyne, it's a very fast growth district right now. But their bonding capacity, it's all rooftops, right? There's not much industry coming in, so those taxable values just aren't there yet, but the people are, right? So we just built them a high school, and the opening capacity is for about 1,500, just under 1,500 kids. But all those core spaces that we built, such as the tornado shelter, which I think are just under the tornado shelter already, they're really close, but those tornado shelters, because that's a very expensive space, right? And it's tough to add on to. We built that for maximum capacity at just over 3,000. The cafeteria, the gyms, the libraries, and another cool thing that we did in there with that is we actually backed up the library to the cafeteria because those core spaces right now did not necessarily need to be out to about 3,000. So it's expandable for whenever that happens for that library to be converted into cafeteria space. It's almost ready. And then there's an addition where those wings are going for the additional classrooms to become that library space. So they don't necessarily lose all those costs that they put into now in the future.
So, and by the way, this is a really good example of when you bring on the program manager, we're looking at things as the owner. We're not looking at it from how am I gonna build this one item?
Yeah.
We're looking at it, where are you gonna spend your money? How do we expand? We're looking at, I'll be honest, like one of the things I look at is just policy. Are we doing everything according to board policy? Do we need to make some adjustments? Can we talk to the board about making these adjustments? So we're not looking at just a particular project. We really do become an extension of who you are.
Very good.
I know we're trying to keep it short, and it feels like it's not short. How about that?
Good conversation.
So you want to go into bond planning?
Yes, we will keep this short. So in our bond planning, the biggest thing that we do is we collaborate in tandem with the architect or the third-party consultant, whoever you brought on to run your bond planning. There are some instances in smaller districts where they don't have either of those, so we run it completely on ourselves, but if they have one, then we work alongside them in their bond planning. So with that, it's a full service, whether it be voter data analysis, website development, key messaging, branding, the videos, social media, digital media, you name it, right? We're able to do it, and so we give those tools to the district to be able to market their bond the best. The biggest thing that passes bonds, however, I will just tell y'all up front, it is not the cool marketing and the materials that we're able to get, which is very cool, and it definitely helps getting that message out. It's the trust and the support from the community in the district, right? It's about how y'all get that message out. So we help you out with getting that strategic method, and then it's up to everyone in this room for us to get that bond passed together at that point.
So how do you decide, because our architect said that their bond services was part of their package. How do y'all decide who does that?
So have you already began with the architect? That's one thing where it varies case to case. Have you already
Okay.
started that bond
So
planning with
we
them?
started our steering committee with them. So they've come in, they've had the first meeting with our community, they're doing a great job with that. So it would be, I think what Sarah's asking is kind of the same thing I was thinking. It's like, how do you make sure we don't have too many hands in the pot? Yeah.
So we work partly alongside them, right? If they've already taken off with that bond planning, then it's our job to make sure that that stays on track and gets executed. However, it's more of a support role almost. So whenever they're running that bond, it may be with some architects, we'll split up who runs the school district and who runs the political action committee.
Okay.
Or sometimes just both of us working together. Those meetings begin with both of us early on, well before the bond's even called. So we're able to line that out and make sure that it's all, everybody has their ducks in a line.
I'll tell you, one of the things that we are, and I'll just say it, a lot stronger than architects are, a lot stronger than architects, is just estimating piece. So, for example, you gotta come up with some type of assessment and a value to that assessment. I mean, that would be a great place where we could jump in and help. There's so many different aspects, but there are strengths and weaknesses for everybody. But I think, I mean, for example, estimating would be a great one. We would just sit down with the architect and figure out, okay, who's best at doing what.
Well, during the early stages of bond planning, I mean, from the standpoint of what may have already occurred with the architectural firm or not, is your facility study and determining what is the projects that's going to be put into the bond program. So, as Oscar's mentioned, and that's not a negative trying to be with an architectural firm by no means, but you've got your resources to set budgets through the study, and then of course the architect. And usually the architect should have cues in there for, let's say the bond goes in November of 25 or May, whatever that month is. But you've got quarter cues of escalation costs that you want to put in there, because by the time you get to construction, you're already a year or longer past those estimates. But we find historically a high percentage is on the weighted scale, those budgets that an architect does usually fall short. So it puts you in a negative position when you first start putting the construction plans together. Whereas if we help prepare those, we feel more confident that we're really giving you real data for real construction costs, knowing the market and knowing what's out there, what the projections and the history data is on real time, rather than telling you maybe so what you want to hear. Because that's the difference there, is saying what you want to hear or telling you what you need to hear. So
And the nice thing about having two consultants is you sit in the same room and you say, hey, this is the homework I did, this is what we came up with, this is the homework I did, and then we compare. And a lot of times, you know, you just figure out, okay, I feel more confident than you do in this, you feel more confident in that, so that's how we kind of pair up more.
So here's a quick example of some of our voter data that we pulled. It shows us their age range, the gender, their voter status, and it gets into far more detail as well. It even tells us if their political party affiliation, if they're able to go in and find information from the past on maybe where they donated to, any charities that they're involved with, and then of course the actual list of the voters. So as the bond campaign goes on, we're able to get that strategy on going through and marking who we know is a yes vote, right? Because that's what wins bonds as well, is getting those yes votes to the polls. So many times we hear, yes, I'm going, yes, I'm voting for it, I support it, and then we check after voter day and they never went, right? So making sure that we go through as a team and have that strategy on who to get to the polls and how to get them there is really what our voter data is used for. So then, of course, just the bond collateral that we offer to both the school district and the political action committee whenever that time comes. And a lot of times your facility committee will develop into that political action committee because they've informed themselves on all the data that goes into recommending that bond to the district. But we do a website for the district, and one thing with the website that we like to do, which I know y'all had kind of mentioned earlier, is we don't like to just pass that bond and then get rid of it. We like to continue it so then we can update it with the information as design's going on, as construction's going on, updating it so people know where to go to get that information on what happened to that 2025 bond that we passed, right? So they can see it. It's a tangible thing, because as they mentioned earlier, sometimes there's almost a year of design. And what happens is people think, well, I passed this bond, what's happening? So if they're able to see what's going on, it helps. Then, of course, social media, flyers, mailers, and the flyers and mailers are very strategic with that voter data on deciding where they go, and whether it be running a 65 and up campaign, if there's a heavy population that needs that information, being able to deliver those to the right people, so we're not spending money on 65 and up mailers to a family that has two 30-year-olds, right? And then, of course, the signs, banners, and ads, just to help y'all market that bond and get it out to everybody. And one thing that I did not mention that I should have, whenever we talked about, I think I heard the term too many hands in the pot. So for bond planning and campaigning, we do not charge. So we charge for construction whenever that bond gets passed and that agreement's decided on. Then at that point is whenever our billing begins.
So we've certainly had some back and forth, but are there any questions? Can we answer? Again, the whole goal for today was for us to share our information and get to know each other.
How do you charge for program management if you don't do the construction?
So it's a
The flat
fixed,
rate, how's that on the amount of the bond? I mean,
yes, sir, it's
percentage?
agreed on upfront on the amount of the bond.
Mhm.
So then there's no surprises whenever we get a year and a half into it, and if there's a change order, we don't charge for change orders. If there's a change in the designs, we don't charge for those. So everybody knows where that flat rate is. Once it's agreed upon, it does not go up or down.
And you would be approving the contract, so you know what those fees are.
Yes.
Everything is there.
So the action item tonight is not the contract, but giving me the right to negotiate the contract. And then, I mean, obviously, I bring it to y'all.
yeah, it's just like when we give you hiring authority sometimes. But
Y'all would have to sign off. I mean, I've definitely.
Can you tell me the 5 different delivery methods again, go slower?
There's construction manager agent, construction manager at risk, competitive sealed proposal, design build, and job order contracting.
Can you just explain job order contracting?
That would be much smaller projects. If you were to go put in a little sidewalk that runs between your school and the playground, you would probably job order contract that. Just one direct person to go through.
Kind of like what we did for like when we had somebody come in and do our visitor bleachers.
Probably
That would
so.
be like a job order,
So-
like we
Yes,
order.
or
so
and
the
come in.
tips or buy board.
Yeah, so the mechanism
Okay, yeah.
that you use job order contract with is there's an agreement between the school district and a co-op where they've already procured contractors, and then you have a standard fee. That delivery method does not require architects or engineers. That's why you can use it on smaller projects. But the state dictates where you can use each delivery method.
No.
And then I like everything y'all are saying, but it's a lot of the same thing that Perkins and Will are saying too. I mean, you kind of mentioned it. It's
Yeah, so I think
same
that's
stuff.
a great question, is what's the difference in like what we've hired Perkins and Will for versus like what we would negotiate a contract for you for?
So Perkins and Will is an architect. I'll tell you by school, I'm an engineer, but I've managed bond programs. What we do not do is design projects. We manage the design of those projects.
So it's Perkins and Will are designing.
Right, so
If the bond
Perkins and
passes,
Will,
they'll be the ones that design it.
correct. So Perkins and Will, because they're an architect firm, they would design the project. So they would be what we call designer of record. And if you're designing the project, you cannot construct the project and you cannot oversee the overall management of it because your role is a designer of record. So everybody has different roles. So that would be the difference, that we're overseeing the different consultants, but we're not we're not designing the actual work. We're managing the design.
what we deal with is architects that they do come to the job once a week. They have a meeting with the superintendents and the CMAR.
Yes.
And pretty much they do change stuff if it needs to be changed, or says kind of something different than what you're saying.
Yeah, because
So y'all would be doing that,
Designer of
but
record. but
Perkins
they-
Wills, we're already paying them for that.
Those meetings weekly are an OAC, owner, architect,
Mhm.
contractor. So, yes, the architect is a very much integral part of that meeting, is an owner, architect, contractor. So just imagine us, we're in an OAC meeting. You got your contractor, such as your CMAR contractor, it's his meeting.
Yes.
And he's controlling it through Procore. We're going through it from the safety moment. That's the first thing, all the way down to new business at the end. So we'll say we're in an hour's meeting, but you got your PCOs, you got your change orders, you got your shop drawing submittals, your RFIs. What we do, or what our role is not really a mitigator, but often they're not. Those drawings, which are supposed to be complete DDs when we go to GMP. So let's imagine we got a project at $20 million. Now we're under construction. Those drawings are supposed to be turned into, or they're required to be turned in by us as to go to permitting and to construction. It's called an IFC, issued for construction. So what's difficult is if you don't have a construction manager, if that contractor finds a deficiency in the drawings or an ambiguity to the design, could be that, then the architect is more than likely going to create the design development drawings or the change documents, change management, contractor's got a change order. Whereas we manage that from the beginning of the design all the way through with cost to mitigate that up front before it ever happens. Because what often happens if you do it the other way, other than program management, what happens is every one of those change orders of deficiency to those drawings or ambiguities, you pay for it by change order.
So you'll be able to oversee all those little errors, the mini kills, okay,
Yes.
okay, so.
Yes.
upfront.
And
And the thought-
respectfully, there are times when they are a change that's acceptable. But a change order should never be from the standpoint of an unforeseen condition that was never showed its face, such as bad soil or something that didn't get picked up, or an owner's desire
And
to
I
make
think,
a change, not from the contractor or architect's position.
and I think like, you know, if I was sitting here on a board trying to decide whether to vote, my question would be, you know, why not just stay with Perkins and Will? What is the benefits of us bringing in Gallagher as a program manager?
Well, I can look at that question from different perspectives, but I can give you a really good example. Just a few weeks ago, we had an owner that started without a program manager, and probably 4 or 5 months into managing the design with their internal forces, they decided we need to bring somebody from the outside in to help us. When we came on board, we started probably 25% construction drawings. So they had already gone through a bunch of phases. The architect had gone through a bunch of phases, a lot of meetings with the community. The community had already seen a bunch of pretty pictures. The community felt like they were committed. But the owner started getting a feel like, they started feeling like, wait a minute, I feel like that's going to be super expensive. But is it really super expensive? I'm being told some number, I'm being told we're okay, but is it really happening? As soon as we came on board, we ran estimates and we had the meetings with the architects. And then at that point, we brought in a construction manager at risk. And they were about, on a $80 million project, they were almost about $10 million over budget. We brought our forces in, sat down in the room, started having the conversations with the architects, the contractors. They had missed a lot of things, and to the point where even the CEO of the construction company initially said, no, we're right, our numbers are right. Towards the end of the meeting, and then even 2 days later, he sent out a couple of emails that said, you guys caught a bunch of things that our contractors missed. We should have brought in other subcontractors for more pricing, but we just trusted them. So, and then I had a conversation with assistant superintendent. We went to dinner and I said, how's the team doing? Just give me some feedback. And they said, Oscar, one of the beautiful things that I'm seeing, I put a team together of about 6 people. One of the beautiful things that I'm seeing now that you guys have been engaged for about 3 months is my folks are talking to me in a different way. They're bringing terms up. They're saying they're literally using words that I've never heard them use before. So I know that they're learning, and because of that, the projects that we have even in our maintenance department, they're actually running a lot smoother now. So I go back to say our job is to protect your interests. That's what we do. Our job is to make sure that you're healthy. Everybody else, I feel like their job is to make sure that everybody, like architects, engineers, I'm a licensed engineer. You want to protect your license, so you're looking out for yourself, unfortunately. But that's just the nature of the beast, right? You want to make sure that you have enough money to build these beautiful buildings. Our job is just to say, you're not really going in the right direction. Let's course correct a little bit. And not in a bad way, but in a way that makes everybody look good. And by the time we're done with the program, we can congratulate everybody, and everybody's going to look great. You build the trust of the community. That's what we do. So I would say that's the difference, that we're just looking out for how do we protect you, and that's it.
And I think that, I don't remember her name, the lady from Perkinsonville, Angela, she did come in and say that they built, they were trying to use local contractors, but they built in such a remote area that they were having a hard time finding those local contractors, and it added to their cost, and they
Sure.
were not aware of that whenever they first decided on the amount.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
And so they did rebid. They went over budget and they redid.
Yeah.
And she had to go in, or somebody else had to come in to help them.
So one benefit that we definitely have at Gallagher is if you look on that map, our kind of specialty is either rural and fast growth districts, right? So we have Dalhart down to Sinton, out to Sierra Blanca, which is almost El Paso, and Woodville, which is right out there by Louisiana, and everything in between. And so as a program manager, we oversee all those jobs, and then as a CMA, we get those live bids to be able to give those more
Yeah.
fine estimates. So whenever we're working in those remote areas, whether it be here, and this isn't necessarily what I would consider remote compared to a lot of the places we work, but Dalhart, San Angelo, all those places where those start coming, we're able to compare our local bids to each area that we're in to be able to make sure that we're able to execute to it.
And so if we went forward, like, so Jeff would be kind of our guy.
Yes, ma'am.
well, but not just Jeff. I mean, obviously
Maybe
Jeff is gonna
a
have,
team.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff has
We
a
do
team
not
behind him.
leave.
And
That's-
here's what I'll say, I'm a relationship girl, I sat and watched Jeff save Royal millions upon millions. I mean, and that's my job, and that's is to protect our taxpayers' money and to make sure that we're spending it appropriately.
I'll tell another story that Jeff probably doesn't want me to tell, but another thing that we do is we do have those serious conversations, close the door with the architects and contractors, and we have the closed door conversations, and our goal is to make sure that by the time as a group we print the information to the owner, it's either right, or if there's an issue, we explain the issue, but then this is how we're gonna fix the issue. But a lot of times we do have to have those conversations. I know Jeff's had the conversations with some architects, contractors, where we say, hey, this is not working. And before we get out there again, before we get in front of the public, these are the changes that need to happen. And those are the tough conversations that a lot of times it's tough for the owner to have, one, because the experience isn't there to be able to say, hey, I'm seeing things 10 months away from today. But the other thing is that you're a public entity. You don't want to burden the relationships you have with your consultants. So let us do that for you. Let us be that bad cop for you. That's another thing that we
Wanders around town.
We don't even know this guy.
Just a guy.
Man,
Is he with y'all?
Is this guy with y'all? Did y'all bring him?
I was hoping you went home.
It's
No.
I was hoping you went home and took a shower first.
I'll scratch and sniff.
I'll sure say, and I won't touch on it with details, but, tough conversations, real fact is legal conversation. And we can call that just tough love, right?
Yeah.
But,
We get it.
it has to happen sometimes more than not, especially in today's world that we live in. And what we have to try to bring together as a group, and it's very important that the team fits and everybody's compatible. I just recently had to, on a brand new program, brand new district we just got, had to change out the lead architects because there's nothing wrong with the architectural firm. But the folks that they wanted to run the job from their corporate, nothing wrong with them. Great people, but they just didn't match the MO with the owner and the rest of the team. So we just fixed that up front. And those are the kind of things, or sometimes we have to go further and beyond that, and we have to make legal amendments to their contract. But it's to represent you all. We're here as an extension to you, to represent you and make you whole every day.
Very good.
Is anybody under contract? Is the architect under contract?
We have not signed the contract.
Who were the people that came and did the thing where we wrote stuff
That's what I
down?
was gonna ask.
We have not signed the Perkins and Will contract.
Who came and did the presentation with us, and then we went over to the,
Perkins, no, that was Mo Casey's. That was just,
that's something
that was our,
different?
that was our like mission and vision, our balanced scorecard. That's what-
Architects only had, we had 3
School
architects
district.
come in front of us, remember?
No, I wasn't here
We
for
had
the
3.
architects.
Yeah, and then that was my other, so when we selected the architect, we went out for proposals. We did the whole, I don't remember how many y'all went through.
Yeah,
Did the whole interview process. This feels a lot like it,
but we haven't gone out for proposals.
but we're only
This-
hearing from Gallagher.
Yeah,
And
this
I
is-
like everything I'm hearing.
No,
but-
that's a great question. So this is more of a professional service. And I don't know if y'all can answer that better. So it's no different than like, like the district, for example, like we went with HMH, right? Like we explored lots of options, we looked at lots of options, and then we brought and said, hey, HMH is our guy.
I want Red to support me on something here because I could be an error.
That's a good question,
But-
Chief.
With your architectural agreement that I think that you have in front of you today, of course, basically an architectural agreement is going to be based on percentage of construction cost. So, of their estimate. So,
Which is why you go out for bid, right? To kind of see.
but what their fee is what it's going to be. Regardless of what construction cost becomes, they're basing their design fee on a percentage for the rest of that project. Now, a lot of times when you're working in a smaller bond, their fee is higher than it would be if it was on a larger project, obviously, right? But an architectural firm cannot do your bond planning as well as architectural fees without charging you. And your proposed contract that you have right now to be negotiated and put together
It includes
before
that.
you execute it, it's got a hefty fee in there for the bond planning that you'll have to pay them to run this bond program, over and above the architectural fees.
And I think part of the question was the difference between hiring or going through an evaluation process versus hiring a professional services. So the state of Texas gives you 2 ways of hiring folks. If you're a professional service, includes architects, engineers, program managers, you can go through so you're considered a professional service. You can hire directly, or you can hire however the owner wants to procure that service. On a construction side, or if you're considered a construction service, you have to go through an evaluation process. So it's a different, there's 2 different ways of going about it. And that's the term construction service versus professional service. We fall under a professional services, a type of service line. So, I mean, certainly if you want, you could go through and say, let me evaluate you, or you could say, we like the way you do business, pretty much like an attorney. If you feel comfortable with an attorney, you can hire an attorney. They're professional services, same thing with us.
Kind of like
So
the financial advisors. if you're-
financial advisor, so it's a procurement mechanism that the state of Texas gives you direction on how you procure different service lines.
And one thing I want to add to him real quick is, so when you say you went out for a proposal, do you mean that you went out for the request for qualifications?
Yeah,
and then they submitted?
RFQs.
Okay.
Yeah, so then-
Okay.
Once they put in on that, right? So, and we're the same way. We're, as a professional service, you can't negotiate fee until selected, right? So with that, then once you get that contract, it would be allowed for us, since we see architectural contracts across the state and know kind of the standard and what to expect, to determine, yes, this is legitimate, right? I mean, everybody's here to feed their families, right? But then also determining what is necessary to look out for y'all and deliver what y'all want.
Well, and even to that, but another way, as far as the contracts with you through the architects as well, right? So but we would manage them. But we would work directly with your legal counsel. For example, I would manage with the superintendent and the legal counsel for the terms and conditions of that architectural agreement before it's ever executed. That way, it sets everyone up for success rather than having those gaps or those scope gaps in an agreement that can come back and it can really be expensive. And we couldn't control it if we don't do it up front. Once it's executed, it's hard to make a change to an architectural agreement.
I think chronologically what we're saying is you bring us on board and then we help you write and oversee and negotiate the architect agreement. It's kind of the chronologically, that's the way it would work.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was gonna ask you.
Versus, I'll tell you, we just talked about a different school district where we came in late. We came in and we looked at their AE agreements and we're saying, wow, you're paying 3% extra than your neighbors right down the road. Here's what they're paying. They just approved a contract. But it was too late for us to go in and renegotiate those agreements for them.
Because they had already signed.
Because they had already signed. So what we do is we'll come in and we'll say, okay, now it's time to bring in architects. Let's look at your neighbors. What are their fee schedules like? And how does that compare to what they're asking for you to pay?
And this
So I think
doesn't,
it's
this
chronologically.
doesn't set up animosity necessarily. It's hard, sometimes it can be a hard challenge, but you work through it. Right? And it's just a matter of professional people working together to come to terms for a contractual agreement. And then everybody shakes hands and we move on, go forward.
Have you ever had a situation where you go to renegotiate the contract or rewrite the contract, the architecture firm pulls out and says, hey, we don't want no part of this, it's not worth it?
So I can think of one, and maybe y'all know of others, but there was one out in far West Texas where he was kind of the guy, and he was the guy for miles. So there was nobody around. And so they had a bond program that they sat on for like over a year, and they didn't have any sort of any product to show for it, right? And he had been there. And so we dug through there, and his fees were outrageous. I mean, stupid. And so we kind of had to tell him, right, you can get back to, yeah, sorry, but they were. I mean, we can tell more of that down the road. But I mean, they were crazy. And so we told him, hey, you need to get these at least within kind of market value, right? And he kind of in a fit of rage told us, oh, then it's not worth it to me. And that's the only.
So it's
Yeah,
not
and
very common.
No,
Very
I've
rare.
been doing this apparently longer than Google's been alive, and I've never had that situation except for that. But I think that was more of an ego thing than
Yes.
anything else. It was not. It did not make business sense.
It's not difficult to do what we're talking about with an architect. And I'll just mention it's known that Perkins and Will was the one selected and looking to be your architectural record. We've got a mile of history. We all do with working with Perkins and Will. I've worked with them
And I've
from
worked with
Miami,
Angela.
Florida to New York,
Oh, yeah.
to Atlanta,
Okay.
Georgia, to Houston.
Yeah, South Calvert was up there that y'all.
Sir.
Calvert, they designed Calvert's high school,
Uh-huh.
and I'm
Yes, sir.
assuming y'all were,
They're a good architectural
And on that
firm,
as well.
so it's just a matter of terms, is what it's about, of what you all want in those terms. That's it.
It makes me feel better to know that y'all have worked with them.
You
Sure.
sure?
Yeah.
And they haven't backed out.
No.
Well,
Well, so there's
For
another.
sure, the other day, I said, you know what's crazy is you make friends and business partners in your career life, and the president of Perkins and Will on the East Coast, it's over all Perkins and Will in the US, is in my phone directory right there. We're personal friends, so I'm not worried about.
You're not worried
So
about that
here, so
relationship.
here, the other concept that we
Because we value
carry,
that relationship as well.
and we carry it across the board because it's only healthy.
Yeah.
Is we say we need to be fair and reasonable,
Mm.
right? So we don't come in and beat up architects and
Mm.
contractors. We want to make sure that we're fair and reasonable. That's all it is. And one of the ways we do that is we look at industry standards, we look at your neighbors, we make a lot of comparisons, and we say, wait a minute, maybe in West Texas it makes sense to pay this because people are traveling, because you've got to pay for housing. But if we look around this area, it doesn't make sense. And that's really, a lot of times you just bring it up to their attention. They say, yeah, you know what, you're right. A lot of times the negotiation is as simple as that. You just bring it up to people's attention and ask. But yeah, the concept is being fair and reasonable. You don't want to be overbearing. You don't want to beat people up. That's not the way it works.
Very good.
The construction side of it is not decided till after, well, I know y'all said y'all talked to like CMAR.
So,
So we'll do a training with y'all
right.
over those delivery methods. And then from there, they all vary on when they get brought on to the project. So once that's decided,
I like the idea of them looking at it, giving you kind of more hard estimates.
yes, sir.
And there's pros and cons to everything. Like I said, delivery methods are a tool. A hammer is not better than a screwdriver unless you drive a nail, right? But you could put a nail in with a
What's
screwdriver, it's just
yeah.
gonna not be pretty.
I got a few.
Yeah.
Same here.
So all it is, we look at the project once it's defined and we say, what's the best tool to execute that project? That's all.
What's the majority? Is it CMAR or competitive still?
It depends, sometimes it's regional, sometimes it's, I would say most of my career it's CSP, but CMAR, depending on the area, it's become a little more popular.
And when you do like
what
a
I don't
sales
like-
proposal, y'all, because you're so familiar with projects, so you're helping out with the cost estimates.
Absolutely.
Because then it's just there, 5 guys are turning them in and whoever's got the lowest bid usually.
Well, for example, the
Unless it's
CEO that was telling us that, oh yeah, you guys caught stuff that we hadn't caught, they were a CMAR and they had a full estimating team. But on their mechanical system, they had only one subcontractor that had given them a number because it was like the main
The guy that
subcontractor.
they-
It was like the guy that they would go to. And they had a bust of $3 to $4 million because it wasn't the right system that was anticipated.
Well, and Mr. Keith, one thing is, the delivery method that Brett has explained, all of those different methods, is something that we really won't be doing until the bond passes and with the architect, and now we're ready to go.
Right.
So in this facility study and in these budgets that's put together to develop what the bond propositions are going to be, it all comes down to what we're going to build. And sometimes, for example, as Oscar's described on the having multiple contractors on site and where we are, if you've got a small bond, a lot of times it's more favorable to have one and have a CMAR that's going to manage with the architect on all of those projects, because you don't want to go build one and finish it and you do another one, we'd never get done. So you might have 5 or 6, 7 key elements that you're wanting to build in that bond. The CMAR is on board with that architect day one. You got the same architectural team on a small district, and it goes better, it goes faster, and that's part of that process. But we don't determine that until we all sit down and group it and come and speak with you all and discuss delivery method and let you all help us with recommendations to make the final decision of whichever method that you prefer.
Any other questions?
So, like I said, I'm rereading the kind of the motion here. So it's project manager contract, not a construction manager.
Thank you for the short meeting. It was quick and
I just
precise.
want you to know,
We were hoping like 10 minutes.
I just want you to know, I think they're talking to y'all more than they talk to me.
I do want each of you to know that.
I knew you were gonna say that, like, as it's coming out of my mouth, I was like, stop. Bradley's gonna say something ugly.
I was expecting that.
That's her little
I
hobby.
know, me too. That's
See how
how
fast
I
she goes, you look for
I decided
personal
to do
best
right.
36 minutes.
It's a big decision. I mean, we've been, I don't know how long we've been pouring over the RFQs and there, I mean, it feels like 2 years. And now we're kind of, we're changing gears, but it's just,
Finally
it's a
putting it
big
into gear.
decision, yeah. I got more than 30 minutes for it.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for y'all's time.
Thank y'all for coming
So
out.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
So do we need to step out or? I'm not sure what the
It's still
process
open meeting.
Just, the only reason
You can watch it online.
we can step out, if whatever y'all would like, or we can stay in case there are any questions leading up to that, but there was quite a bit of back and forth, so completely up to y'all, what you would like to do.
I think y'all are fine. We're together, like, best thing about the transparency is, so I guess the next 2 things, you only have the agenda in front of us. So do you continue?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
say you continue.
Yeah, I think
still
you,
don't
he
know
says
where
you
I'm at.
continue, hey Stu,
Pass that buck.
I still don't know
but,
where I'm at.
oh, sorry. But when you read it.
It's just a presentation. I don't know. For this, I never.
Do this one first.
Yeah, I'm surprised when I was coming on 437.
B first.
Do A first. And then
Plus
this will,
that,
this
really,
will come B.
I saw it on.
I just didn't do it right now. The very first time.
Thanks a lot.
I'm sorry.
When will we find out the bonding capacity?
So Tracy, you want to speak on that?
Tracy?
Well, I can tell you, I will be talking with Dan again now that we have everything in place, but I mean, we're pretty good at, when I mentioned about 33 million, I think that that's pretty well where we're gonna be. Yeah, pretty close to where we're gonna be, so, but I will, and that's, my fault for not talking with him this week, but I've been trying to take care of, 23-24 school year, closing the books. So, but I have every intention to talk with Dan this week about the capacity and where we're going from here.
And then does it affect the cost depending upon the bond?
So question for y'all already, soft cost out, $30 million even, how do y'all charge on that if we do a $30 million project?
It's not what we charge, but probably you say you've got 33 million. We're going back out of that between 17 to 20% for soft costs.
Yes, sir.
So, probably looking at about a 27 to $28 million construction cost.
And how y'all do y'all's fee on that? Y'all go off that number?
Well, in the soft cost, there's a lot of components, but it's all of your professional fees. It's your surveyors, your geotechnical engineers, architectural fees, our fees. All, and then, more importantly, the biggest item is your FF&E. Because we don't like, I prefer not for FF&E to be carried in construction cost. That needs to be carried as an owner's cost of the fixtures, furniture, equipment of the building.
And what I was gonna say is that, I certainly would love to get into specifics on fees. Unfortunately, the procurement code doesn't allow us to talk about a fee until we get into the negotiation aspect of it.
Okay, so we'll hear from her later.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanna make sure that we're all,
Yeah, we don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Right, the Texas Ethics Commission will be all over all of us. We can do that.
This will be on the news.
They'll be like, and we have video.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
we didn't.
It wasn't about our fee, that was about what you.
So-
Yeah, how we organize.
Yeah. So we'll move to action items and consent agenda.
Yes, the first 6A, which is about Mrs. Ross. Do I have any motions or do you have any questions in regards to,
Hiring a new first grade teacher.
yes?
I think it's great.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll move.
I'll second it. Second, I hear a second. All those in favor? Against it? Motion carries. All righty, now we move to item 6B, which is to have a motion to authorize the superintendent of the school to engage in negotiation and finalize a program manager contract with Gallagher Construction Company for potential bond projects. So move. Motion has been made.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
I have one quick question. When you say finalize, you're still gonna bring it back to us for
Yes,
approval?
yes.
Okay. Just clarify.
Yes, that would be hopefully,
You're just gonna have it final
yes.
ish.
Like, I think, and make sure I'm understanding right, like this gives me kind of the authority to start the
Gotcha.
negotiation,
Negotiate.
but
Yeah.
I would provide y'all updates before we finalize.
Now, that would become another action item at a later meeting.
I don't think it becomes another action item, I think it's me communicating,
Okay.
send, like, the
Do
blind
you
copy.
want to or not?
Yes,
so to
yes,
speak?
like how are we good? Do you
Yeah.
feel good to go? Yeah.
So let me rephrase that one. Do I have a motion to authorize the superintendent of the school to engage in negotiations for a program manager contract with Gallagher Construction Company for potential bond projects?
I'll go that one again.
Okay,
I'll second.
all those in favor? Yes, motion carries. There's your motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Meeting.
7-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
All right, thank you.
Hope you have a better trip back.
Thanks, man.
Less traffic.
I hope so. But, you know.
It's entertaining, so everybody's coming.
Well, so I live in West, I came from San Angelo.
Watching.
Oh, that's all right.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I